Beijing today approved the resignations of Chief Secretary Carrie Lam and Financial Secretary John Tsang. The State Council also named Matthew Cheung and Paul Chan as replacements for the two former top officials. At the same time, Lam announced she will join the upcoming chief executive race. Evelyn Leung tells us more.
The State Council made the announcement this afternoon. Matthew Cheung, originally the Labour and Welfare Chief, was named as a Chief Secretary for Administration, replacing Carrie Lam. Development Secretary Paul Chan, meanwhile, was named Financial Secretary, replacing John Tsang. Later in the afternoon, Lam met the press.
I now formally announce that I shall contest in the upcoming Chief Executive election.
She then outlined what she plans to focus on if she's elected as Chief Executive.
Like many of you, I am worried about the discontent that has emerged in our society. I know our younger generation are concerned about the lack of upward mobility and the cost of housing. I share the desire of many that we must reignite Hong Kong's can-do spirit. At this juncture, it is incumbent upon the government to restore faith and hope, propel the economy, reduce inequality, and build greater consensus.
While pledging to build a more inclusive society, Lam was asked how she plans to deal with the controversial political reform issue. Lam headed a team to work on the political reform proposal. Beijing sets a framework for the political reform which triggered the 2014 Occupy Central protests. In the end, the SAR government's reform proposal, based on Beijing's framework, was voted down at LegCo.
My position now on the political reform matter is we have to be very pragmatic. While democracy is something that we should go for, we have to take a very pragmatic stance on whether we have the right environment for us to revive the discussion on another political reform in Hong Kong. Because at the moment, the feeling I've got is people really want Hong Kong to move ahead in diversifying her economy, in creating quality jobs, and in improving people's livelihood.
Executive Council member Bernard Chan has been named the director of Lam's election campaign office. John Tsang, on the other hand, only released a press release following the approval of his resignation. He said he has been debating whether to join the CE race after he resigned, and he will make an announcement soon. Tsang also thanked the central government for its trust and support, and he hopes to be able to play a part in helping Hong Kong develop in the future. Evelyn Leung, TVB News.
Well, the newly appointed Chief Secretary for Administration and Financial Secretary listed out their work agenda for the remainder of the current government's term of office.
I see this as a huge privilege, honor. At the same time, the job itself is highly and hugely challenging. My priority in the next few months will be, first of all, to follow up and implement the various recommendations and proposals affecting livelihood, the economy, society, arising from the forthcoming policy address to be announced on Wednesday.
As to the priorities of my work, understandably, the first and foremost short-term priority is to work with the team to prepare the budget for the coming financial year. In that process, I will take a hard look of our public finance situations and see what can be done to enhance our competitiveness, and to try to explore means to explore new economic development areas and provide support to those rising sectors.
Undersecretary for Labour and Welfare Stephen Sui is now the acting secretary of the Bureau. Meanwhile, Undersecretary for Development Eric Ma has been appointed as acting head of that bureau. Under Leung Chun-ying's administration, Matthew Cheung was credited with several popular benefits for the city's poor and elderly. Meantime, Paul Chan battled to find land to build homes for local residents, but found himself entangled in a number of controversies. Adam Shu with that story.
Of all former and current officials of the SAR, Matthew Cheung has the longest track record on labour welfare issues. Since joining the government in 1972, he has served in various bureaus and departments from the Finance Branch and the Government House to the Trade Department and the Financial Secretary's Office. Cheung had been Secretary for Labour and Welfare since 2007. He rolled out major benefits to the elderly, such as a $2,200 monthly allowance for the city's 300,000 needy senior citizens and a public transport subsidy scheme that offers $2 bus and train rides for those eligible. In 2013, a massive labour strike broke out at the Kwai Tsing container terminal. The workers demanded better pay and working conditions. Cheung mediated between the workers and their employers. The strike lasted 40 days and ended with the workers securing a 10% pay rise. For the wider working class, Cheung managed to secure a statutory minimum wage, but he had hit a snag on the more controversial issues of standard working hours and retirement protection, which are still being hotly debated after Cheung's 2 terms in office. Paul Chan joined the government much later. He was the accounting sector lawmaker between 2008 and 2012. Less than a month after he assumed the post as the development chief, Chan's wife was found to hold shares in a company that operated subdivided flats. In an ambitious scheme to develop the northeastern New Territories, Chan met the strongest and sometimes violent opposition. And his wife's company, again, was holding land in the region. Chan found himself embroiled in a possible conflict of interest controversy. He insisted it was his wife's business, not his, and that he had made a declaration to the chief executive. Chan vowed to give it all out to increase land supply for housing, which is the chief executive's top priority. Yet under Chan's helm, local property prices have risen higher, while flats have become smaller, casting his work into doubt. Chan pleaded for less opposition to the government's attempts to rezone greenbelt sites for residential development. Adam Xu, TVB News.